Hey y'all, I'm just kidding. Shalom, shalom. I just wanted to make an updated homeschool routine video. Not much has changed since the last time that we homeschooled, the last time that I made this video, or a homeschool video. But I wanted to kind of share what I'm doing now. I have 6 children that are here that I homeschool, and I just recently had a son who is about to be 7 months. I have a 2-year-old. I have a 4-year-old. I have a 6-year-old who just started kindergarten this year. And I have one that they consider Downs, special needs, who is 9. And my daughter, who is 10, almost about to be 11 in just a few days. So I just kind of wanted to share what I'm doing. Hopefully it can encourage someone else or maybe give someone else some ideas. It's nothing big, fancy, or, complex. It's just a very simple routine that we've been doing that works for us, and just thought I would share. So when we first get up in the morning, I'm going to try to rush through this, or not rush, but I'm going to try to get through this kind of fast, because as soon as I press play, the baby start crying. That's just how stuff like that work. It ain't nobody in the house right now but me and the 2 babies, and they were supposed to be taking a nap. So I'm back with this guy. I didn't want to leave the baby crying. See, I had the baby. She had the baby, mama. I had the baby. I had the baby. Let's continue. He's content now. She had the baby. She had the baby, mama. I had the baby. I had the baby. I had the baby. She had the baby, mama. Alright, so really quick, I wanted to just go ahead and give the homeschool routine. So first thing we try to do, we wake up at 7:30. I try to wake up anywhere between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. I try to have breakfast. I try to be cooking breakfast anywhere between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. And I want to be done with, breakfast and small, sometimes I have the children clean up their rooms and all of that before we actually get started. So I try to actually start the schooling at 9 o'clock if possible. I'm not tripping if it's earlier or later. It's really not a big deal. As long as everybody's mind is right and we're getting it together, then I'm cool. So after 9 o'clock, after breakfast or before breakfast, we will do our exercises. After our exercises, the children already know to sit on the couch because it's time for Torah. So one of the children, usually Jackson, will get my Torah out the bookshelf, and we'll read a chapter in Torah. We started from Genesis, now we're in Leviticus. We actually should be further than Leviticus, but when we took a break from homeschooling for a couple weeks, we stopped reading the Torah. I know we probably shouldn't have, but we did take a break from the Torah reading as well. And so, yeah, we're in Leviticus. We read a chapter a day. Sometimes we read more, especially when we were in Genesis and Exodus. All of the stories, the excitement of the stories where, the children would want to read more chapters. So we would. But in Leviticus, sometimes we did skip a couple of chapters because if they were like talking about building the temple or, like making the garments for the priests, not that those things are not important, because they very, very much are. But with the younger children, they don't quite understand that. So I want to read them something that they can understand and comprehend. I don't want to be reading just to be reading. So if they're not engaged, or if they're, not distracted, and I'm just reading just to be reading, that's not cool for me. So I just try to read them things that I know they're going to understand and I know they're going to gain understanding from. So after the Torah is done, I get the children. The boys, they sit down at the table and they get their handwriting worksheets. While they're doing their handwriting worksheets, I usually get Yahuda, which is my 2-year-old. And meanwhile, this one is usually on the floor playing with some toys or doing his thing on the floor. But my Yahuda at this time, I usually sit aside with him and I'll do his flashcards with him. He has a set of sight words that he does. There's about 20 of them that he does. He does his ABCs, his Aleph Bayit. We go over numbers and different things like that, which I'm going to start slowly incorporating colors and shapes. But so far we just do his sight words, numbers, and letters right now. And we'll go over those for a while. I might read them a quick little book, and I'll do that. Now, once the boys are finishing with their handwriting, then we have our group activity, and we usually sit together. Now, this is the time where Yahuda needs something to do, because this is the time where he gets a little bit rowdy, and if he's starting to be disruptive and distracting, then I will either, if it gets so bad that I might have to sit him down and put something on for him, like ABCs, 1, 2, 3, something like that, educational, that he can sit down and watch until I'm finished with the other ones. I don't usually like to do that. That is usually my last resort, but if I have to, then I will. I try to give him some blocks or some toys, but his attention span, he doesn't play with something long. So if he's quiet in the next room, it's a problem. So, because he's probably doing something, he's probably up to no good. So I try to keep him occupied with something that is constructive rather than destructive. So yes, I usually have him doing that. At first I made this little folder for him, and something just fell out. But this little, because he loves the olive bed, and these pages are just falling out. I guess they didn't, I don't know. But anyway, this little folder for him is upside down. With the Hebrew Aleph Bayit in it, and I just took some construction paper and just wrote the Aleph Bayit in it, paleo and modern, just so he can look at it. And he used to love this thing. He would just pull it out of the bookshelf and just look at it, and he would sit there for a while and just look at it. But now that doesn't entertain him as much anymore, so we have to find other things to entertain him while I'm trying to teach the older ones. So I try to, get him occupied so then I can have the attention of everyone else. So once I have everyone else's attention, I usually grab this board, or I like to stand up at the big board and write on that. But if I have to hold this one or feed him or do something like that, then I will just use this one, and they'll sit down on the floor and I'll sit in a chair or something, and I will write on here. So if I was at the big board or using this, I will write a bunch of different numbers on here, some big numbers, some small numbers, and I would just write about 2 rows of numbers on here. Right now I just have 2 numbers, but I'll write about 2 rows, and then we'll go and I'll point to the number. They'll tell me what number it is. 50, and then even or odd. Even, circle it. If it's odd, 75, odd, I'll cross it out, and then we'll just kind of keep going through that. I'll have a bunch of different numbers, and they'll do it that way. After we finish that, after we do that, we'll do greater than or less than. So I'll have 7. I'll do something like 310 and 301. Now to a little kid, these numbers can look the same. So I do this on purpose so they can, understand the difference. So for one, we're saying big numbers so they can get into the habit of recognizing big numbers and saying the big numbers, and being able to tell the difference between 310 and 301. So we've been practicing on the ones place, the tens place, and the hundreds place. So we do all of that in this by doing this. So we're looking at the ones, tens, and hundreds place. We're practicing saying the numbers, and we're doing greater than or less than. So after we establish what numbers they are, then we say which one is greater. Then they'll tell me, and then I'll, wrong one. And then I'll put that, and they'll say, oh, he's eating it, and they like that whole little deal. So after we do that, then we'll do some basic math, and I try to give them the basic principles, math principles or rules, whatever you want to call it. I try to go over math principles or rules, whatever you want to call them. But the first rule was kind of 10 plus a single digit number is usually just the same number with a 1 put in front of it. So they kind of understood that concept. So whenever we would do it, they would do it just like that. So they have that one down packed. 10 plus 4, 14. 10 plus 8, 18. 10 plus 9, 19. You know what I mean? So they just have that. They can do it just like that now. Now when it So now after that, we did what numbers equal up to 10. What numbers do you add together to equal up to 10? So they got that one down, like 7 plus 3, 6 plus 4, 8 plus 2, 9 plus 1, and vice versa. So they got that down packed, and then we pushed it up to another level. So if we know 7 plus 3 equals 10, 70 plus 30 equals 100. So now we're adding numbers together, the same number together, and getting the sum. So 5 plus 5 is 10, 8 plus 8 is 16, and so on and so on. So I try to have these math rules and principles, whatever you want to call them, down, so that way when they are doing their own, you know what I mean? So when they get to more complex math, these rules and these numbers will be in their head, and they can kind of get through them like that. So after we kind of go over and then we'll go over our consonant blends. So I will probably put BL on the board, and we'll sound it out, buh, buh, or SH, sh, TH, th, CH, ch. So we'll go over these different blends and pronounce the sounds, and I will give them words with those, some words with those consonant blends in them, and we'll practice saying them. After we do that for a little bit, I will write some sentences on the board with, usually have some of their sight words in them, or some of their number words or things like that in them, and they know what a noun, and a verb, and an adjective is. So I'll write a sentence something like, the girl is funny, something like that, and they will find the noun and the action. If there is no action, then they'll just find the adjective. If there's no adjective, then they won't find one. But I do a couple of sentences like that, and we'll get through it that way. After that, we also do the flashcards, and this isn't in any particular order, but this is all when we're doing our group activity, whatever comes first, last, second, whatever, but this is just the overall thing of what we do. There's no particular order. So we will also go over our flashcards, which will be the number words, not just like numbers, like 40. It'll be the actual number word. We'll go over the sight words that they get a couple of sight words. I add a couple of sight words every week, probably about 4 sight words a week. And then I gave them color sight words, and we'll go over those. So we'll go over all of our flashcards, our Hebrew flashcards, and all of that. Once we finish that, I usually pull out this map, and they know that there are 7 continents. They have to point out the 7 continents. We'll go over the 7 continents. They point to them and all of that. So we use the map whenever we're talking about anything that we can look at the map for. We'll bring out the map and look at it. Like we've been talking about Native Americans and, who lived in America and, in our country, who lived there first. So I explained to them the Europeans came over and we kind of go over that, where we were originally and how we were left here and came here, and I kind of just give them a visual. Do they understand it all now? Probably not, but they still are able to point out the continents, and that's just the basic right now. They'll understand more complex ideas as we continue. So that's what we will do then. So after we go over the map, and after we do all of our group activity, I will then do our 101. Our 101 is still pretty much the same. We still go on our folders. We grab the folders, and here, this is Jeremiah. He has a little book in here that he'll read, a little level reading book. He has some math in here that you can do with a dry erase marker, and another, some money chart in here that I have that's also laminated. We can do with a dry erase marker. So usually he'll have more worksheets in here, but this is all he has right now, because sometimes I will leave myself an index card in here just as a reminder. So if I want to work on the clock with Jeremiah, if I want to work on specific type of math problems with him, I'll leave that card in here so I can remember to do a specific thing with him and work on. If I want to work on sentences with him reading, whatever, I'll write it on the flashcard, leave it here so I can remember to go over it. So that's what we'll do. After I'm finished with Jeremiah, I'll grab Jackson and Malachi, and we'll go over their things. This was once in his folder. I'm not sure how it got out, but these, I have a list for Jackson of spelling words. I'll make him a list, and he has to write it down, write his spelling words down on these index cards. No, they're not the neatest, but he knows what they say, and it's him practicing them, so he writes it down. I wrote this one. Obviously, I was trying to show him what I wanted it to look like, so he can have these flashcards and he can practice on his own time. This is also usually in his folder, and sometimes, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, but sometimes these will be, I will make him write it down on a piece of paper, or we'll just sit together and do it separate together, and you know, we'll just go over it. 5, 10, 6, 6 cents, and we'll just kind of do that over and over, and he'll add up all the cents. All of his previous work that he's done is over here. I need to put all of this in a safe place, because here in where we live, our homeschool area, they like for you to have just something to show what you've been doing, or the kind of work that you've been doing. They never ask for it, because this process here is very simple. Really, you just have to sign them up and all of that, and make sure you turn in their attendance. But they never really check the work that you give them. But I keep it on hand just in case, because I don't want no stuff, you know. But these books are in here. These level reading books we get from the library. I find it cheaper than that. I used to buy these, but I find it better. It's better just going to the library to get these books. We'll get several of them, keep them for a few weeks, and he'll just continuously read them, you know, over and over. And it's just easier that way than spending a whole bunch of money on level reading books, and I can just get them free at the library. So that's what we usually do. And this is a little bit more complex than these books, but I'll usually have them both in there. This one says first grader. Jackson's a kindergartner, but you know, I give him whatever I know he can learn and do. So that's what he does. And he has a bunch of different worksheets in here. Reading comprehension, English. We've been going over synonyms, antonyms, and homophones. He has math, different math worksheets, and we've been going over tens, 100 place. We've been doing all those different things. So all those worksheets are based on things that we've been going over. So he doesn't finish all of his work in one sitting. When I'll just let him maybe do about 2 to 3 worksheets before, because at this time it's probably about 11 o'clock. So I'll usually let him do a few worksheets, and then I'll let him go play for the remainder of time, because we'll have lunch at 12 o'clock, and then after we eat lunch, then after lunch is quiet time, because Yehuda and Jeremiah are usually taking a nap, and everybody else needs to be quiet and doing their work too. Either doing their work, reading a book, or doing something quietly, because this is quiet time. If you're not quiet, you're taking a nap. So this is what we're doing at this time. It needs to be quiet time. So, because I usually like to take this time to do some things with my daughter and look over her work, to make sure that she's on top of everything that she's supposed to be doing. I'll make a separate video about the things that she has to do, because her schedule is completely different than what it's been before. Something new that we've started with her that I love, and I think is working really well. But yeah, so after lunch, Jackson finishes up the rest of his worksheets, and then we continue on with the homeschool. So we try to be done by 2, 3 o'clock. So then if it's a good day outside, we can go outside and play, or we can do something else after homeschool is completely done. I like to be done by 2 or 3 o'clock. So yeah, that's just kind of a quick version of what we do. And this is just right now. As soon as the weather starts, the weather has been starting to change a little bit. I know cold days aren't completely gone yet, but they're almost there. You know, it's getting there. So once, you know, the weather is warmer and we can go outside, we're going to be spending a lot of time outside. We're going to be doing a lot of physical work. Most of our time will be spent outside. I'm planning on doing that. We're going to be doing a lot of outside outdoor activities, whether it's planting seeds, just learning outside is what we're going to be doing. I want my goal for my children is that they can have book smarts, knowledge on how to use their hands, how to be physical, how to do all of that, and have some sense of street smarts. You don't have to be in the streets or be raised in the streets to have some sort of street smarts. You just need to know how to deal with certain people and deal with certain situations that are, I guess, street or whatever. You know what I mean? Just so they can have the mentality. They can be able to discern between all. So that way they can feel confident in stepping into any type of situation, whether it is reading a book and researching and discerning, or whether it's going outside and being physical. I want them to be well-rounded. That is my goal. I hope this information was helpful, and yeah, I just wanted to kind of share, and hopefully it can give you guys some ideas or whatever. So yeah, shalom.